Hello everybody and welcome back to Typical City. Nottingham Forest are the visitors this Saturday, 3 o'clock kickoff, 23rd of September at the Etihad Stadium. I'm looking forward to this one. Could we see an amalgamation of previous results throughout the Premier League campaign this season? Could we see the 37 shots against Red Star, the 30 shots we got against Sheffield United, the 29 shots on goal against West Ham? Or could we see the 7 shots on target that we got? No, it wasn't even on target, it was only 5 on target, but 7 shots in total against Fulham, yet we go and win the game 5-1. Combine those results and Nottingham Forest are going to get an absolute spanking. Could we see City become the first joint team, to go 13 successive games in a calendar year? The last team to have done that was Manchester United, and we put an end to that run with a very, I think I remember the result. 6-1 at Old Trafford. That was the result. I remember it well. It was a good time. But Forest, we can't make no mistake that Forest are going to put up a decent fight. 7 points in 5 games for Nottingham Forest so far. They have gone away to Stamford Bridge and beat them. You know, they were unlucky not to get a win or something from the game against United after they lost 3-2, but they were down to 10 men. I mean, beating Chelsea isn't as big a accolade anymore as it once was, but still going away to Stamford Bridge. And we do owe them a big thank you for beating Arsenal last season and handing Manchester City the Premier League title. Thank you very much, Nottingham Forest. But bit of housekeeping first. Injury news. Bernardo Silva is out, but thankfully it's not that serious. I'm glad about that. It's going to be 1 to 2 weeks, so I imagine he's going to be back maybe for the Newcastle game in the League Cup midweek, or could it be for the Wolves game? Not too sure. John Stones and KDB are the only ones that are still out. John Stones has continued to be out, hasn't he? It's a worrying one, that, because it's gone from different injury types as well, which is bothering me. But Kevin De Bruyne are inevitable. Jack Grealish is back. Good news. Could he go straight into the starting 11? You'll have to wait and see what I think about that. Kovacic wasn't mentioned. Why? I don't understand why no one's asking the question about Mateo Kovacic. Is he back or is he not back? I believe he is. I believe that the news that I'm reading is that he is back. But why was no one in the press conference with Pep Guardiola even asking that question? It's like people forget about this guy. He seems to be quite a forgettable guy when, to be honest, he's hit the ground running like a duck to water. This player is absolutely incredible so far for us. I mean, Nunes came on against Red Star and he dictated that midfield. He was bossing that midfield alongside Rodri. Will Kovacic be thrown in? I'm not too sure. But I am looking forward to this game. I do have a funny feeling it could be a similar sort of result that we saw last season in the same fixture at the Etihad, which saw Erling Haaland get himself a first half hat-trick. He's going to be fuming after his performance against Red Star, where he had chance after chance that were not as simple as the ones against West Ham, where he did actually eventually get his goal at the London Stadium in the final few minutes of that game, but he spurned some serious sitters. Against Red Star, less so. I don't think the chances were as clear-cut as those West Ham chances, but still, they were chances by his standard. You would have expected him to come away with a goal. That spells danger for Nottingham Forest, in my opinion, and I think he's going to be starving. He's fiending for goals. I guarantee you he's getting one. Almost guarantee. I would probably put decent money on it. Watch him fucking failed miserably now I've said that, but Alvarez as well, he's a guaranteed start. He's created 16 chances this season. The last City player to have done that by that amount of chances was in the 1920 season, which was Kevin De Bruyne. He created 19 chances by this stage in that particular season. So Alvarez is clawing his way to Kevin De Bruyne stats. That's how good at creating chances he is. You know, I mean, goals and assists, both ends of the spectrum of what you want from a creative player who also can score goals. And it's just frightening prospect to think that Alvarez and Haaland are now finding their feet together on the pitch. The duo of these two is going to be a devastating duo, and the likeliness of one of them going to be injured at some point throughout the course of the season is high. It's going to happen. Maybe 1 or 2 games, possibly out. The fact that one of them can do the other's role, well, Haaland can't do Alvarez's role, but the fact that Alvarez can step forward into Haaland's role is fantastic news, and we know full well Kevin De Bruyne is going to be coming back. Phil Foden's going to be stepping into that Alvarez role that's currently sat behind in the number 10 role. I do think this is a fantastic time, really, for those two players in particular that are just like combined, just sublime football between the two of them. I'm really looking forward to it. Against Forest last season, They at the City ground, we did draw 1-1. Obviously, we're at home, so we've got home favour in our advantage. Doku, I think, is going to be a big factor in tomorrow's game, because the way Forest have nullified a lot of teams this season, Chelsea, and the way they beat Arsenal at the City ground last season, the way they took a point off us last season at the City ground was incredibly narrow play, where they forced City as wide as they could, and last season they forced us down the wings to the byline. And with Bernardo Silva and Jack Grealish, neither of those had a good game in that particular game. I think it's a different prospect this time because of Jeremy Doku, because now that's his game. He wants to be sent out wide, down the touchline, going into the byline. And the thing is, he can go either way. The guy can go either way. But the fact that we've now got Doku is another key to picking and opening locks of defences in a different manner to what we were used to seeing last season. This season, we've got a very different tool in our set. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how Doku's going to play. I'm almost certain he's going to play against Forest, because he wasn't started against Red Star. He did have to come on because of Bernardo Silva's injury, but the fact that he wasn't starting the game, he only got the second half or the final few minutes of the first half, then the second half, of course, I do think it was an indication that he's probably going to start the game against Forest. But let's have a look at City's starting 11 first of all. I've gone with Ederson, Walker, Akanji, Diaz, Gvardiol back in the starting 11. Rodri, Nunes, so no place for Kovacic just yet. Alvarez is undroppable, has to play in that number 10 role. Foden, this is a position now that I think we haven't heard the experts come out yet, because I've been talking about it all season, about his role, and how I highlighted in one particular video I dedicated towards him about his role and how he's not playing. He is physically on the pitch playing centrally, but on paper he's starting out wide. So we've gone from an inverted fullback to an inverted winger. That's what we're doing now. It's an inverted winger, making the space for Kyle Walker to get forward. I'm almost certain we're going to do that again, with Foden probably tucking inside. On the other side, I've gone for Doku, who will stay outside it. I don't think you can invert Doku. Maybe he could learn those skills further into his Manchester City career, potentially, but Phil Foden definitely can tuck inside and become that inverted winger. So it's a new system. Meanwhile, you've got Klopp and Mikel Arteta inverting their fullbacks still. Old news, mate. Get with the times, guys. Come on. We're inverting wingers now. Keep up. You know, you got to stick with it. Pep's one step ahead. I said it at the start of the season. They will try and emulate exactly what Pep Guardiola does, but you try and be a copycat, you're always behind. With plagiarism, you're always behind. Partey tucking inside. Trent Alexander-Arnold tucking inside as the inverted fullback. Meanwhile, other teams will have figured out, or at least attempted to figure out, and solve the solution, solve the puzzle in how to beat a team that inverts one of their fullbacks. And while they're figuring that out, we're already coming up with our next plan. And it's inverting the winger instead and sending Kyle Walker down the right wing. And it's working so far. 5 games out of 5, won our first Champions League game, check, win that as well. This is likely going to become our 6th win, which is just incredible. It really is. I mean, in fact, this being our 6th win in a row, if we win it, of course, that would be the second team in Premier League history to have defended their Premier League title with 6 games won in a row from the start of the season. The last team to do that was Chelsea in 05-06, and they went on to win the league. However, to counter that, which isn't the greatest bit of news, is that the last time City won their first 6 Premier League games was in the 16-17 season, Pep Guardiola's first ever Premier League season, and we finished 3rd. So very different sides, obviously, though the 16-17 side to this 2023-24 side, just very different. Pep was finding his feet. Now his feet are very firmly planted in the Premier League. So yeah, I do think this is a very different side, and I wouldn't read too much into any of these historical stats, because history means nothing at the end of the day. Just ask Arsenal and Liverpool and United. They live off it, don't they? History means nothing. We're going forward, mate. Forward. In terms of Forest, they've got plenty of options. You know, there's a big squad. They aren't shy of dipping into the transfer market, and they go for quantity a lot of the time, a bit more than quality, to be honest. They should be. I'd prefer a bit more quality than quantity, but they tend to go for quantity. And it saved them last season. I think they rotated enough to get them safely into the Premier League, and they've got off to a good start this season. I do think the loss of Brennan Johnson to Spurs is a big loss. But Hudson-Odoi comes on against Burnley and scores an absolute worldie. Fantastic. Who was effectively the player who made way for Cole Palmer, who's doing nothing at Chelsea right now. Yet Hudson-Odoi leaves Chelsea and his career's starting to look a little bit brighter, isn't it? So I do feel for Cole Palmer, unfortunately. But the only slight doubt for Forest is Serge Aurier, who I think will play. And the fact that they tend to have fullbacks as well, and wing-backs rather, emphasis on the back is going to be against City there, and that less so on the wing, more back. So I do think it's going to be a pretty flat back five against City, because we're not going to give them much choice in doing anything different. Pinning them back, most likely. Can they build that Red Forest wall and stop us from breaking it down? We'll have to wait and see. Gonzalo Montiel played in that position, right wing-back against Burnley. I think it was actually a flat back four they played against Burnley. But Koleosho of Burnley destroyed him. That was his debut, Montiel's debut for Forest. Koleosho ripped him to shreds, to the point where he was subbed off at half-time. So I think it will be a case of Serge Aurier, get back in. Even if you're 95% fit, we don't mind that 5%, get you on the pitch. And I do think his experienced head would probably bode well, but you're going up against Jeremy Doku, who I think is going to be playing on the left against him. So it's going to be a tough ask for whoever they play there, in truth. But they do tend to have multiple formations they can play depending on who they're going up against. With City, I like to think they're going to probably revert to their 5-3-2-1. That too isn't very wide. Against Chelsea, they employed a very, again, narrow sort of setup with, I think it was Gibbs-White and Danilo who played behind Awani. I think Hudson-Odoi would be harsh to be dropped after his performance against Burnley and the goal that he scored. I like to think they probably will go for Hudson-Odoi. They could play Elanga either side, but that's a very bold formation for Nottingham Forest to go for, especially against City. Excuse me, I can't see them doing that, in truth, which would be really, really risky going for a 4-3-3. I do think they're going to go for that same Chelsea performance, absorb the pressure. But at the end of the day, I say they absorb pressure. They conceded 21 shots against Chelsea, but Chelsea only had 2 on target in that game and end up losing 1-0. So you're looking at the game and thinking, if you give us 21 shots, if Haaland's still not got his shooting boots on, that's your best hope of getting even a draw out of the game, because if you concede 21 shots against us and if Alvarez gets a few of them, you're in trouble. You can't be conceding that amount of shots against City, unfortunately, and I like to think they're probably going to be doing that. Awani and Hudson-Odoi is the only players that I really think, Gibson-White as well as a threat. I think we've got to keep Awani quiet, get Diaz tight on him, physical on him, Akanji on him as well, and I think they will be on his back because he's got 9 goal involvements in the last 9 consecutive games. So he's their main man, really. They're going to be the target man. Could they go long ball as well, trying to hit us on the break? Could he bring it down and allow Gibbs-White and Hudson-Odoi to get involved in the play? We'll have to wait and see. But the starting 11 I've gone for is Turner, Bolly, Worrell, McKenna as the back 3. Bolly, who's got a bit of history with City, playing for Wolves, scoring with a hand, if you remember that. That's against Wolves. That was a robbery of the highest calibre. Aina and Aurier as the wing-backs. Sangare and Mangala, another name, but not the same player, thankfully. Well, actually, I would like it to be Eloquin Mangala, because he was absolutely woeful at defending. So, it's not the same Mangala, but Sangare and Mangala in the middle. Gibbs-White and Hudson-Odoi tucking in just behind Awani is what I've gone for. I think regardless of the team they play, I think they'll be pleased with a respectable 3 or 4-0. I think really they should be going in. The form that City are in, the fact that they're still playing well, I just think they'll be quite pleased to not get humiliated at the Etihad. They don't want a repeat of another 6-0, but I have a funny feeling that it could be. I'm going to go for 5-0, which it's not unreasonable anymore, is it? I see a lot of City fans coming to me with your predictions and giving me 5 or 6-0s on the rag. So I do think you're going to be doing the same. I think most City fans are probably expecting a reasonably high scoring game. If Haaland has his shooting boots on, you're in big trouble. I think that's the narrative that will be played out. But anyway, what are your predictions? What are your previews and predictions for the team? What's your starting 11 prediction for both sides? Get them in the comments below. I want to hear them. Like and subscribe. Typical City is the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now.